Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Happy New Year. It's 2023 and Black Authors Matter TV is in the house with you tonight.
Yes.
I'm your host, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Good evening, everyone.
And I hope you all are enjoying your year so far and are working on your New Year's resolutions if you made it. We have
Do you make resolutions?
Sometimes.
It just kind of depends on what it is.
It depends on what it is. And I try to set goals throughout the year. So I don't depend on the new year for new things.
Right,
This show
That's kind of how I am.
In July. So we weren't at the new year or nothing when the show launched. So yeah, I kind of set quarterly goals for myself. And so if I'm on track with those, then I'm good.
Right.
So our first guest is in the waiting room, but before we bring her on, we are going to just have a few announcements. I have a microphone, as you all can see, for those of you who are watching. This was a Christmas gift. So all my friends and people who know and love me want me to be my best self. So I keep getting different gifts, lights and cameras, action. I'm getting microphones, I'm getting stuff. So anyway, we always are trying to upgrade and improve. Our National Black Book Festival author registration and vendor registration is now open. People have already started signing up. So
they cannot wait. Last year was amazing. So why not?
Last year was. So, and the Jerry Pinkney Children's Book Awards process has also started. And we've had people sign up for that already. So that's exciting. We have established our next book club kickback, which will be March 7th, and we'll be reading The House of Eve by Sadika Johnson. So that's already confirmed. And in the month of February, on the first show of the month and throughout the month, we're going to be hearing from some authors we haven't heard from in a while. So we try to do like a throwback thing in February where we hear from some people we haven't heard from. So we have already got some people booked for that. So we're excited. We have 2 books to give away, but we'll do it at the end of our first interview. And our first guest is Jacinda Townsend, and she is a best-selling author of the books Mother Country and Saint Monkey. And she has really made a breakthrough with those 2 books. And so we want to hear about them and her career and what gave her the idea for the 2 books that she is known for. So as soon as we get her on the screen, we see a picture, but I don't think that's her. I don't think that's not a live picture of her.
Right.
Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Hi, Gwen, and hello, Rhonda. Nice to meet you guys.
All right, nice to meet you. Now we have a sunlight coming through. Is that what that is?
Oh, that's weird. I'm gonna move. It's not sunlight. I don't know what that is.
It's some kind of light. Okay. I just didn't, it's kind of cutting off your face a little bit.
Okay, is that better?
That is better when you move to the side.
Right.
Okay.
So thanks for being a guest on the show, and congratulations on your success with your 2 books especially. And you will also teach English, is that correct?
I do. I teach creative writing here at University of Michigan.
Okay. And is that how you made your foray into writing novels, or did you already have some things in the can already. Some people have books they've worked on for years before they take the plunge and send it in.
Yeah. So I had, I guess I had my very first novel I wrote, I did a Fulbright in Ivory Coast, and I wrote this novel and nobody wanted it because it was too grim.
Mm.
But then I started writing other things. And then my first novel, Saint Monkey, I started in 2008, I think, and sold it. And then it came out in 2014. And then this one I started in about 2013 and it came out this year. So yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the storylines for both. What was Saint Monkey about? That's an odd title.
Sure.
Did you pick the
Sure.
title?
I did.
Okay,
And so
okay.
Saint Monkey is it's about two young women. They live in Eastern Kentucky. One of them is and it's set in the 50s, right? So one of them is this
Okay.
brilliant pianist. The other wants to be an actress, but her father kills her mother, and she then has to raise her sister, her little sister. So she doesn't get to go be an actress. But the pianist is discovered and hustled off to New York. So it's about whether their friendship can survive all that distance and everything. And then the second one is about a woman who is struggling with infertility. And she goes to Morocco on a business trip, and she finds this child, or finds, and she thinks this kid has no parents and is unaccompanied. But it turns out that child belongs to a woman who has escaped slavery in Mauritania. So it's about what happens before she takes the child and after she takes the child. So that's the no spoiler version of both novels.
All right. Because you don't want to spill the beans. So for Saint Monkey, what is that? What
The
are you
title?
referring to? That's an odd title. So
yeah. And so this comes pretty early in the book, so this isn't too much of a spoiler, but there's a scene where these two girls are one of them is fighting with this boy outside, and her friend's grandfather says, you know, your friend Caroline's just a monkey. And she says, no, actually she's a saint. And so kind of the title is about how all the people in the novel, there are so many characters who have such different sides to them, you know, and sometimes they're saints, sometimes they're not. But that's what the title is referring to. So yeah, even that the father who killed his wife at the end of the novel turns out to be something completely different. So yeah.
So what is the inspiration behind the stories that you tell?
Well, both of them, and even the one I'm working on now, a lot of these are about how women, and especially Black women, are constrained no matter what they do, you know. So in Saint Monkey, for instance, the pianist, the woman who's a pianist, she escapes Eastern Kentucky, but then she goes to New York and she runs up against this glass ceiling in the jazz world. She's not allowed to really play much. And then in Mother Country, it's kind of the same thing. It's like there's this one woman who's living this harrowing life as a slave. And then even after she's escapes, there's not much she can do, you know, and she has to really hustle to make it. But then there's this American woman who she has her own problems. You know, it's like she's struggling with infertility and she has all these people telling her she has to have a baby, including her husband, who she married because she doesn't have dental insurance, you know. And so it's about how a lot of what I write is about it's feminist, and it's about just, you know, all the constraints that patriarchy puts on us, and especially you know, when you add the layer of white supremacy to that, what that kind of makes Black women do. But everybody
Mhm.
in the end, I think, all my characters, there is not a one of them that doesn't have a lot of fire in their struggle. So I try to give them really good endings. So yeah.
So I see that you tell the stories from a historical perspective. However, I could still see many of the issues and the challenges that they face are being faced by women today.
Yes, absolutely. And that kind of motivated me as I was writing Saint Monkey. I was going through some really terrible workplace discrimination, at the time. And I thought, as I was writing about this woman who is just, she's this sort of like piano prodigy, and these men are just treating her like the laundry girl. And I
Mm.
thought, like, gosh, this is irrelevant, and I know I'm not the only woman who's facing this, right? And so yeah, it was a real motivation to write. The second one, I would say, came more out of there are a couple of sort of background things with that one. One is that so in 2013, I was writing a story for Al Jazeera about women in development. And I met a woman who was working for an organization in Mauritania called SOS Esclaves, which means Save Our Slaves.
Mm.
And I learned that 20% of the population of Mauritania is enslaved. It is just as brutal as like slavery in this country was, right? And so she introduced me to some activists who hosted me while I was there. And then they introduced me to a woman who had just escaped slavery with her 8 children. So to give you some idea, she had escaped slavery and given birth on her way out of the desert. So I got to hold this baby who had been born free and have this powerful feeling of like what it's like, what it's been like through history when you finally have a family member born free,
Mhm.
And so she became kind of the background for the story of the escaped slave in my novel. But the other woman, the American woman, kind of the background for her is that when I had my kids, I had this vision that, their births were going to be this like great, wonderful, peaceful, beautiful thing. And, just childbirth isn't like that. And both of mine were emergency C-sections. And so it took me a long time to stop feeling like I had failed at childbirth and that I was really their mother. And so I thought, like, what if you kidnapped a child, how long would it take you to feel like that kid's mother?
Wow.
And so that became sort of the backdrop for that character.
Wow. Now you do a
Wow.
lot internationally. It seems like your novels aren't just based only in the United States. So are you like a world traveler yourself?
Um, just mostly to one country. So I kind of fell in love with Morocco. It was an accident that I ended up there. I did a Fulbright in Ivory Coast, and on the way back to New York, the stop was Casablanca. So I stopped there one time, and this is back in the day when you could extend your layover, and I took the train down to Marrakesh, and it just blew my mind. So I've kept going back. And I've gotten to know it really well, it's and so then I started taking my kids, and we all it became kind of a second home to us.
Beautiful.
And so it was kind of natural that I would set this novel there, because it is a place where there are lots of sad stories there. It was and still is in a lot of ways a developing country. Yeah, it's been fertile ground. We just got back. 2 days
Mm.
ago. I
So
took
you
my
spent the
now
holidays there.
18-year-old. We did. It was incredible. It was really neat. Much warmer than here.
Do the holidays hit
Wisconsin.
differently when you're spending them in another country? I know when I spent Christmas in other countries, it just felt different. It didn't feel bad. In some, it just felt different. I wouldn't even say better in some places, but I will say some countries do Christmas a lot better than others do.
Yeah. What country were you in for Christmas?
Well, I've spent Christmas in Egypt. I've spent Christmas in
Mm.
Europe, a number of countries in Europe, France, Germany,
Oh, wow.
Belgium. I just love the way different countries celebrate Christmas.
Yeah.
And interesting to me is that, Israel, Egypt, those are Muslim countries, but they decorate for Christmas because they know there's so many tourists there, and we
Yeah.
like Christmas.
Yes,
Mm.
yes, yeah. Say Marrakesh was a little bit like that. Probably similar
Ah,
to Egypt, and that nobody was celebrating, but yeah, there was a little Santa Claus in the shop window, right?
yes.
It was interesting. The holiday, I mean, I've been there so many times on July 4th, and I get actually like weepy because I want to be home, of all the holidays to be somewhere else, I want to be home. But we enjoyed it. We had a good time. So
Well, I'll say this, the first time, and it absolutely is, and I just never thought about it, but I was an adult living in Egypt the first time I heard somebody call Thanksgiving an American holiday. And it's something that you don't think about. You're
mhm.
like, oh,
I think
everybody
it's
celebrates
universal.
Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
Right, but it is
Yeah,
purely an
yeah,
American
it's American
holiday.
holiday.
And
Mhm.
every time the people in the other countries talked about Thanksgiving, they would say the American holiday Thanksgiving. And I'm like, wow, okay, I guess it is.
It is uniquely American.
Yes.
But I wanted to refer to something when you were talking about Mauritania, and you were talking about slavery in Mauritania. In America, slavery was racial in terms of, white versus black for the most part. I mean,
Hmm.
we do hear about Native Americans who had slaves, but it was a small number. It was basically a white slave owner versus black slaves. So in Mauritania, who is the
It's the
powerful?
same. It is exactly the same. So there is a group called the Mars, which I think in English we would call them the Moors, and they're
Hmm.
um sort of, kind of more of Arab descent, and they are enslaving the Harten, who are of sub-Saharan African descent. So it is color based and it is caste based, which means that it's really hard to escape because in Mauritania, your caste determines what your vocation is. So for instance, there's a family of car mechanics, or there's a family of I mean, every job is case based. So if you escape slavery, there's nothing for you to do. I mean,
Hmm.
this organization actually was trying to find jobs for them that they could do without belonging to a caste. But it's really hard. It's hard to escape to. There are a number of reasons it's hard to escape. It's hard to escape because of the caste thing. It's hard because the geography is just so um it's so punishing. It's most of that country is desert. And so it's kind of like it's the difference between why slavery here was so hard to escape versus in, say, the Caribbean, is that there weren't many places for us to hide, right?
Right.
Nowhere. I mean, if you go out on the desert, everybody's going to see you, and
If
you,
you last,
if you
but
let,
without water,
exactly, because yeah,
it's no
um,
shade.
exactly.
It's just like
Uh,
even in American deserts. I had never been. I went on a road trip a couple of years ago, and we went through the Mojave Desert, and that was my first time in a desert.
Mm.
And we were just there's. I mean, there were sand dunes, and it's along I-40, Well, it might be not I-40. It's in California. So it's on one of the interstates in California. I know we ended up on 40, but this is just you're driving through the desert, and it'll tell you the next 100 miles you need to gas up before, because there's nothing. There's very little. There's
Right.
so there's nowhere. There's no cover. There's no coverage from the sun.
Yeah, it's just it's
It's
so hard.
brutal. The
It
sun
is.
is when you're in the 110, which is what my car the mom said we were. And you hope, you get your car checked out before you go on road trips, but you hope you don't have any issues,
Right. Right.
hot.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
hot. So that's interesting about Mauritania. I just wondered. So it's not Caucasians as much as it is it's Arab.
Exactly. And
Interesting.
the other main reason I would say it's really hard for people to escape, and probably the saddest reason, is that so it's a really isolated country. There's one TV station, and it's state owned. All the radio stations are state owned. And so slavery just became illegal there in 2008. Until then, it wasn't even, nobody thought it was wrong. But there are a lot of people who still don't. Their belief system is such that even the slaves themselves think that this is like the will of Allah, that they should be enslaved, and this is what these masters tell them. And so it's a lot, it's like people don't know, because it's such an isolated country. People don't know this is going on, but it is as brutal as American slavery was. Definitely. It was pretty terrible.
And I guess because people don't realize that they're there, because they're kind of isolated, they could be brutal without a lot of ramifications.
And
Right.
exactly.
There are no trade, embargoes or anything like that.
Right.
And, there are a lot of countries. One thing that always fascinates me when I see the Olympics and they have the countries march in at the beginning, it's all the countries that we never hear about. There's no news report unless you would really have to make a concerted effort to seek out news. But just in your traditional American media, you only hear about a few countries, and the rest of the world, we really don't, unless you travel there extensively. We
Well,
really
if we don't have a
about it.
trade interest, if
Right,
there's not something that we want from this country, we're not going to hear about them.
right. Or military interest, which is normally based on trade. So,
hmm
even though they might say it's based on other things, freedom or whatever, but all wars are based on money. That in the end, ultimately, they're all based on money, or power. But even power is money too. You can't have power without it, without the resources.
Now, did you mention that you're working on a new book?
I am. So this one, James Loves Ruth, is my third one, and it's about a woman who her father is killed in like an afternoon of so this is hard to talk about without spoiler free talking, but her father, there's some police brutality, and her father is killed. And in the late 80s, she decides to change her identity and move across the country to Kentucky. So when the novel opens, she has just filed for divorce, and her husband is like, "This is not your name. Like, is this your real, like, whose name is this?" And she's like, "No, that's my real name." And so it's kind of about how he's discovering who she really is and understanding that he's never really known her. At the same time, she's finally dealing with this grief, so when she starts to resume her old identity, all that grief comes back about her father.
Yeah, that's pretty natural. When you start to think back about things, it just kind of hits you like a waterfall.
Yes. Yeah.
So do you get your inspiration from your books, from your own personal experience? It sounds like you do. And I think most authors, when they write books, there's some personal, there's something personal in there. It could be, I know for me writing, when I write fiction, a lot of times I will give a character my thoughts. You know, that character will think about things the way I think about it.
Mhm.
And I might give statements or dialogue to certain characters based on my own thinking. So do you do that?
I do. I feel like it might be a little bit the other way around too, in that the characters sometimes come to me, like Ruth in the novel I'm working on now. Ruth kind of came to me fully formed. And in a way, it's like she is telling me what to do. And I know that sounds crazy, but I got to the end of the book and the first draft, I cried for 3 days because I was like, Ruth was no longer with me anymore, you know?
Oh.
And I
Oh,
was
Yeah,
no
I mean,
longer,
there are a
that
lot of writers whose characters really become a part of their lives.
happens.
Mhm.
And you know
Mhm.
where you'll just start to think about, okay, let me get up, I have to write this.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I
So
think
you
that's how
both,
we end up with sequels.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And so you
better
both write
custom.
fiction, right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you both write fiction,
Yeah,
right?
well, I'm more of a fiction writer. I think Gwen writes more
I'm more
nonfiction.
nonfiction.
Yeah.
I have one novel and I'm writing the sequel to it, but I write more nonfiction. Most of my books are
Okay.
nonfiction. Mhm.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
do
but
research-based writing.
I love fiction. I love playing the what if game. What if
Yes.
it would have happened this way?
Yes.
Okay, let me write about that.
Yes. Yes. So what characters are you guys living with now?
Well,
Oh,
for me, there's a character who's been in my life for years, and I have not written him down yet. And he won't leave me alone, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and write this character write this story centered around this character who is a soldier who's struggling with something deeply personal. So I've got to go ahead and get this book written because it's been in my mind for years.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds really cool.
yeah. Now for me, in the sequel that I'm writing, my main characters were all males. It was a strong alpha male point of view in my first book. But my readers wanted to hear more from the wife of the main character.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having to think about more about her
Hmm.
and her thoughts and prominence and what she's going to do, some of the things she's going to encounter, more of her backstory, because there wasn't much of her backstory in the first book. So
Hmm.
that's what I have it in my mind. I haven't really started because I'm telling the story and I'm leading up to her. So, and then she'll become more dominant later. But my readers said they wanted more from the wife of my main character, not just about him, because she was more of a supportive role in the first book. So we're gonna do that.
Okay.
I'm working on it. I'm writing.
There we go. See, what you have just done, ma'am, is you have gone ahead and inspired these stories that we're going to have to go ahead and finish writing now because you asked that question.
You did. You did. And you made us have to think about it, you know?
Hmm.
Well,
So
I mean, they both sound awesome. Like, I can't wait to read them soon. Yeah.
Well,
okay, well,
unfortunately, we're coming to the end of the story. I mean, end of the story.
and the process.
End of the segment. But can I did put your website in the chat, but can you let us know how else we can reach out to you?
Sure. So I'm on Facebook and Twitter as Jacinda Townsend, and on my website, JacindaTownsend.com, that my email address is there. It was nice to talk to you all. Thank you
Okay,
so much
same
for having
It
here.
was
me.
great talking with you as well.
And Happy New Year.
You too.
All
Bye-bye.
right, take care. Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Okay, that was an interesting interview.
Yes, she was very
Um,
pleasant.
mhm. So we're gonna, before we bring on our next guest, who is in the waiting room, we are going to we're going to do the trivia for our two books, and we'll announce who wins after the interview. But our next guest is the author of a book called Black Country Music. Her name is Francesca Royster. And
Yes.
what we are going to do with this book, the trivia for this book is one of the artists highlighted in this book has the first name of Valerie. Her last name is a month of the year. Which month is her last name? So, and this is a hardcover. This is the actual book, not an advanced reading copy. So we're going to be bringing on the author in one moment. And the next book this is called The Thread Collectors. This is historical fiction. And I think it was mentioned on one of our previous shows, but it has two authors, Shauna Edwards and Allison Richmond. And for those of you who want to see that. And the trivia for this one is the two main characters' paths converge in what southern city? So if you get that, that's called The Thread Collectors. This is historical fiction. So we will be giving away the books at the end of this interview with Francesca Royster. And we want to welcome her to Black Authors Matter TV. With her, she has other books, but her latest book is called Black Country Music. And I'm interested to hear all about her motivation for writing the book and hearing about some of the roots of Black music and country music converging. So welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Oh, thank you so much, Gwen. Rhonda, it's so good to see both of you. This is so great.
And good seeing you as well. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I can tell you a little bit about what got me thinking about the book. And then, it feels like it's a time where there's this amazing renaissance of Black artists who are embracing country music. And like looking at the surface, it would seem like a new thing, but as many of us know, like country music and Black people have been kind of intertwined,
Yes.
since country music was invented. And so I think part of what I'm interested in the book is kind of looking at the history and then looking at some of the artists who have really been looking backwards and forwards in their music to call attention to the longstanding relationship between Black artists and this genre, which is has a pretty strong pressure sometimes to present itself as white. And I think it's purposeful that sometimes Black artists and often Black fans feel uncomfortable going to spaces where country music is performing or going to concerts or clubs and bars, because there's this history of using country music in a way to to uphold white supremacy and to keep our lives segregated. But the reality is that Black music is central to the form. Black artists have always been innovators within country music and as well as adjacent music. It's the music of, that's informed by the banjo, which is an African instrument at its roots. It has been with us since we've been here in the United States, and it has its African cousins, now in contemporary African music. And it's also the music that enslaved people played to entertain themselves as well as their masters. And it's part of Black folk music all along. But I think as country music has emerged as a commercial form, there was this pressure to really create a sense of its segregation from white culture and to market some music to Black artists and Black audiences and some music to white audiences. So, in the 1920s, there was this market, this creation of this genre called hillbilly music, which was marketed to white listeners, and race music, which included blues, but also country blues, and that was marketed to African Americans. And at that moment, in like the early 1920s, there was kind of this sense that, country music is naturally white, which is a myth. So anyway,
Right.
I
And
started. Oh, go
no,
ahead.
I'm saying you really broke it down already. But you're
Yeah.
right. For a long time, we thought that country music was white music, and even now, in this day and age, if you see a black person listening to country music, we're looking at them like, "What are you listening to?" You know,
Yeah.
we're still not used to it. Even though Jimmy Allen is probably one of the biggest country stars out there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's some real country music superstars, Mickey
Mhm.
Guyton, Brittany Spencer. So yeah, there's a lot going on right now.
Right.
The movie Ray, uh, he talked about, that was done so well by Jamie Foxx, but um,
Yeah.
he talked about how he grew up on country music and he loved it because of the stories. And that's something that you still hear a lot about country music, that it tells stories. And one thing I'm not a country music fan just because to me it's too much twang. That's the way I describe it. It's not, I can't with the twang. But
That
but
twang is kind of sexy now. I kind of
it is.
like it.
If I hear it live, I can deal with it better live,
Yeah. Yeah.
than just hearing the recording. But they do tell stories, and they have kept country music clean. I give them credit for that.
Mm.
Mhm.
You don't hear them referring to women in a derogatory fashion. They kept it.
Mm.
They
And
have a
that's a
level.
great
So
point that it's still in that way it's still
still
pretty
clean.
pure. It still values love and relationships
Mm-hmm.
a lot
It does.
more than some of our hip hop music does.
Mm.
Um, but I think part of that is I don't believe that there was this big pressure on country singers to have to flaunt their wealth. Because hip hop performers are often singing about how much money they have and how they're popping crystal and flying in helicopters and all these things like that. But we don't hear that in country music. I don't believe there's the same pressure for them to flaunt that type of wealth.
Mm. Well,
Because I think
yeah.
country music is supposed to be kind of that down home type music, so to speak.
Yeah, and definitely I think that there are so many different kinds of country music and so many different moods and feelings. There's kind of the country music that's very patriotic, or that embraces what we call traditional family values. And then there's music that's about dating and sex and romance and all that stuff. So
Mhm.
in the same way that hip hop, can be very political and progressive, it can be feminist, all these
Mhm.
things. And it can also be about bling and pleasure and spending money and flaunting your money. So I do think that Old Town Road with by Lil Nas X was kind of a funny song in bringing out all those different elements, because I mean, definitely when Billy Ray Cyrus was singing on the song, he was kind of talking about bling. He was talking about, driving a Maserati sports car, all these different
Yeah.
things might associate with hip hop. And I mean, some might say that the song is hip hop. It's kind of a hybrid, but
I
yeah,
like
I
the
don't think
crossover songs.
the crossover, right? But I don't know if any genre is really pure in that way.
Ri
And
Yeah, because
but
they're borrowing elements from somewhere. Most of them are borrowing elements from another genre or another artist. Sometimes even I sing in my church choir, and some of the contemporary gospel songs, well, they'll have uh, the melody from R&B in
mhm,
there. They adopted. I remember telling you, and I can't remember the title of the song, but I know it's by John P. Key. I remember telling my minister of music that the melody of that song was from Keith Sweat.
Yeah.
And he said, well, what do you mean? And then I found the song and I sent it to him. Yeah, it's Keith Sweat in there. I can hear the different elements, especially old school music, because that's just my love that
Yeah.
I had a huge collection and just know all the artists and just love that because it was so creative and so original. And one thing about country music, they still play instruments, which is missing from your R&B. Even rock, there's still a band, but they kind of got rid of bands for the most part in R&B, which I really hate, unless it's a live performance. But I really like music for the purity of it, and that's missing in some music today. But I just found that your topic of covering Black country music was so different. Now, I know this book is published by University Press.
Like
So,
Texas.
so was it a little easier to get them interested in it than it would have been? Would you have been able to take this to a traditional publisher? And do you think it would have been interest?
Yeah, that's a great question. Definitely, when I started out working on the book, I thought for sure that there wouldn't be a big demand for it. And part of what happened was this explosion in the music itself that's been happening in the last 4 or 5 years. So, and that created more of a demand. So I heard from University of Texas Press after I published a short essay on Tina Turner and Black fans. And they wrote me and asked if I was planning to write a book. And I was like, well, I was kind of on the fence, but if you think, yeah, why not? I mean, I have so that was part of it. But then while I was working on it, I heard from a couple of mainstream publishers that asked the same question, and like more commercial publishers. So I'd already committed to University of Texas Press, and I love the press because it is both an academic press, but it also circulates in it has a popular readership too, especially around American music. And so this book is part of their American music series, and it's been covered in by like venues like on the Today Show and NPR and different things like that. So I feel like as a university press, it's really good at bringing in lots of different readers. But at the same time, I wanted the book to influence the conversations that people are having in universities too, like the way that the music is taught and the ways that people think about the history. So, I'm a nerd at heart, and the research part of the book is important to me. And so for that reason, this press was really a good choice because I had some room to really dig into some of the history, but also to experiment with writing in a way that I hope would capture lots of different.
So did you structure the book as more of kind of vignettes or maybe profiles of different Black country singers?
Yeah, in the introduction, I try to kind of look at the history of the genre and, for example, kind of thinking about why contemporary Black audiences might feel uncomfortable around country music. And I look at Blackface minstrelsy, which is part of the roots of country music,
Mm.
and the way that's really like the bridge of where Black, country music as a Black folk form and country music as exclusively white, like that movement of blackface is so important to that history and to the segregation of the audiences. So, and just the discomfort that some people feel around the genre. And then I looked at, how certain political campaigns that are white supremacists have used country music
Right. They're the
to.
ones who use country music as their backup song, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. So it makes sense that I think Black audiences would be discomfort uncomfortable. So yeah, so in the introduction, I deal with that. And I also talk about my own experiences being in country music spaces and just feeling really like paranoid and uncomfortable and really reflecting on why that is. The rest of the book is, yeah, focusing on different artists, thinking about them and their choice to integrate country music or to be full-on country music artists. So I have a chapter on Tina Turner, whose first solo album, Tina Turns the Country On, was all country music covers, done in her distinctly country girl, Tina Turner soul way. And listening to that album, it really forces you to think, oh, what I think of as country music can also be thought of as like as Black music, because that's what she's
Right.
making, and it sounds like Tina Turner. It is Tina Turner. So, so I have a chapter on that. I have a chapter on Darius Rucker and his decision to be a part of kind of the mainstream country music.
Hootie.
Hootie, yeah, yeah, and just like what it took also to kind of be kind of the only Black person for a long time, and what
Yes.
choices that might have involved. And I did some readings of
Yeah.
his songs.
Hootie is so interesting to me. I call him Hootie, some people say Darius, but I
Yeah.
just think he's so interesting because he sings like more than one genre of music. And
Mhm,
it's almost like he has this split personality. But when I
mhm.
see him talk with other singers and the encouragement that he gives them, I just absolutely love his story. I would love to see a book just written totally on him.
Yeah, I would too. I would be really interested in that. And I feel like he's someone who, he seems to be very generous toward other artists, but he's also
Yes.
very protective of his private life. I mean, I know a little bit because I was really digging, but like he's always someone who seems to very much, value his privacy. And so, which I respect.
Mhm.
But I think a book would be really interesting about him, because I feel like what we know about him feels very controlled. Like what we know about Darius Rucker, we know because he's decided for us to know about it.
Exactly. I like that
Right.
though.
Yeah.
You
So
know what I want you to know.
yeah,
Now
yeah.
we've had a
He's very
couple of
good.
comments from our viewers.
Oh,
Mary Evans says, "I love me some Jimmy Allen,"
mm.
and Tony Bonita says she loves Aaron Neville
Oh
and
yeah.
the late Dobie Gray.
Those are wonderful artists.
And Janice Kearney said Charlie Pride came first, which I believe is true.
Hmm.
He
Yeah,
was
a
the
lot
one,
of
he
people
was
think
like
he
the
was the
only one
only.
for a long time.
Yeah.
Like he was the only
Yeah,
name, and had a wonderful career. I mean, was a very popular artist for decades. So
absolutely. Yeah. In my chapter on Darius Rucker, I talk about Charlie Pride and Rucker together, because one thing that Darius has said is that he wouldn't have been able to do what he's done within country music without Charlie Pride, and that Charlie Pride's willingness to or his ability to be so successful during a really racially tense time period. He
yes.
started in, during the civil rights movement, and really had to deal with a lot of racism and threats
Hmm.
of violence while he was performing. And he had this very genial, very professional way about him that I think kind of helped him survive. And I think he also worked with other artists a lot and did a lot of collaboration. And, he was really smart about how to make alliances. And that seems to be something that Rucker also does. But just in terms of their styles, I think they're also they have a similarity, like the warmth of their voices and the kind of storytelling songs that they both do. And I know Rucker writes a lot of his songs, and they're often about, his family and um Charleston, South Carolina, where he's from, and stuff like that. So I think they're really two peas in a pod. And
Hmm.
it was really cool that right before Charlie Pride passed away, he did a song together with Darius Rucker and Jimmy Allen. Um, that I think that collaboration is really interesting. And Jimmy Allen has done
Mhm.
a lot of
I'm gonna have
um,
to find that song. I don't think
collaboration.
I've ever heard it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just blanking on it for a second. It's called. Let me see. I'm sorry. I know we are live, Facebook Live.
It's okay. This is what it's all
Yeah,
about.
that's what it's
Yeah.
about.
It's called Why Things Happen.
Spontaneity.
Why
What,
Things
okay,
Happen. The name of the song is Why Things Happen.
oh, why things
Okay.
happen. I have to look that up.
I'm going to look for it.
Yeah, I think it's 2020 was when the song came out. So yeah.
Oh, okay. And Janice Kearney also. And Janice Kearney she's a regular viewer of the show. She's also an author, and her writing is mostly history based biographies or so. She said that there is an excellent documentary on Charlie Pride.
Oh,
so
great.
I didn't know about. And now I watched The Voice. I don't know if you watched The Voice. I've watched every season of The Voice since it came on TV. I like vocals and I like singing, and so and I like the fact that on The Voice it has the element of it's about the voice and not just who's popularity or a gimmick or whatever. But Blake Shelton has been the country judge for the inception of the show, and he ended his reign this last season that ended. But whenever he has a Black country contestant on, they go pretty far. And because he's able to groom them, there was a woman on. She went both of them went to. There was a man on that went to the finals or close to the finals, singing country music the whole time.
Yeah,
which was different, and interesting.
Yeah, it seems like The Voice, from what I hear, because I am not an avid watcher, and but I was just talking to one of my coworkers about it today, and he knew much more about it than I did. Lawrence, if you're out there, you. So I was talking to Lawrence about The Voice, and we were talking about America's Got Talent and the group Chapel Heart, and it does seem like these shows are really bringing together Black artists and country music and creating space for that. And I think that some of it has to do with the traits that are really great about the genre that you just named, like the storytelling element, the fact that it can be like a very voice-centered with like where you get to show off your musicianship and vocal chops, all that stuff. But also I do think that we're at a point where the novelty of country music and Black people is moving from being a novelty to something else where people are really thinking about it. And that has to do with like figures that I wrote about, or, people like Randy Giddens or other Valerie June, and as well as like Brittany Spencer and Mickey Guyton and Jimmy Allen, and people who are really asking us to think about, how central Black artists have been all along. And, like I grew up with Millie Jackson, who, in the 70s made her own country music album too. And that's not the genre that she's known for, but her voice and her style is very much compatible and simpatico with country music. So she, was also making music during a time when the market was much more narrow, and it was harder for her to make the music more country music songs, but she did make a country album as well.
Wow, I never heard about that. I knew about Millie Jackson and some of her risque stuff.
Yeah. I wasn't supposed to. Millie Jackson.
I didn't know she did a country album, but that's interesting that she did that. I wonder if it's still out there somewhere. But another thing I just thought about just now, the women who sing country, even the Black ones, but even the white ones that I'm just thinking about, maybe with the exception of Carrie Underwood, but they're mostly alto or tenor voices. They're deeper voices. They're more raspy and earthy, not really a soprano, high-pitched voices.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because Millie Jackson had a deep voice, and sort of Tina too had that raspy, raw voice.
Yeah, there's something really soulful and it feels like authentic,
Yeah.
and like
Mhm.
expressive, really expressive voices. Yeah, I think that's really an important, and I do think that like gospel is an important inter like it's an important part of country music sound as well.
Absolutely, it is.
And so
Mhm.
that like
Mhm.
the spiritual aspect of expressiveness in the voice that you hear in gospel is also important in country music. I mean, I think that that's where you feel those things coming together, like thinking about the voice as a vessel.
For sure. Because on The Voice, several of the country singers will sing a traditional gospel song. Several of them have done Amazing Grace,
Mm.
His Eyes on the Sparrow. So and they do very well when they sing those songs, the traditional uh hymns. Um, and they were they're country singers that did, I can't call their names right now, but I think Hank Williams did like a gospel song, and
Mhm.
Elvis I think did some gospel stuff.
Yeah, and Willie Nelson
Yeah,
and
Willie
Dolly.
Nelson.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So
I just
they're
put a I'm sorry, I thought you were
no, go
done.
ahead.
Oh, okay.
No,
I
but
was just saying I just put a couple of your articles in the chat, one from NPR and one from Amsterdam News.
oh
And Amsterdam News, I believe, is a black-owned newspaper, isn't that correct?
yeah, in New
Yeah,
York.
based in New
Yes,
York.
in New
Yeah.
York. Do you find that when you are interviewed by black press that they're surprised when they see when they see you and they see that you've written a book about black country music, or are they more excited, so to speak, because they're finding us in a new space that's still pretty untapped?
Yeah, I think that people have been excited, and the black folks that have been interviewed for like at the Amsterdam News or other places, like at first they're curious and they want to know, what's my angle on it and how am I connected? And especially as a northern born African American woman, I think the connection to country
Yeah.
just doesn't come immediately to mind. But
Yeah, if you were Southern, they say, "Oh,
Yeah,
okay."
okay, all
it
right,
would be,
yeah,
it would
totally,
seem more
totally.
natural.
Right.
Yeah, but I actually did live in the South for a while, and of course, my family is all Southern, so
Mm.
I can claim being a Southerner too. But yeah, I have found like a real receptiveness, and I had a chance to talk to Djuanna Summers, and I think that being interviewed by African American folks, even in like non-African American venues, there's just a kind of warmth and a basic understanding. And because I think that the history and music that I'm talking about in the book is familiar to a lot of people. And like if it's not the music that they listen to, then like their grandparents listen to it. Or, yeah, so I think that this is a history that all of us have somewhere. I started really thinking about it because my dad who's an English teacher who's retired, was also a drummer, and he was playing drums as a sessions musician for some country music artists when we lived in Nashville. And so when I was talking to him about it, I thought, wow, I don't think I know very much about Black country music, and I really want to know more. And I want to know why I don't know more, because I study music, and this should be something that people are talking about more. So
Mhm.
it got me excited just talking to him. But I think that I'm really excited to be in this conversation and to connect with other Black people, because I do feel like this is part of our history.
Absolutely.
And,
Mhm.
even if some of us it's not maybe everyone's favorite genre, I think that there's a way in. And there's so many, like in the artists that I was looking at, there's so many different styles. Like I love the music of Rhiannon Giddens and Our Native Daughters. They're using the banjo in their album, Songs of Our Native Daughters, to talk about enslavement and Black history and kind of sheroes of Black history kind of through this form, country and folk and all these different things. So they're using their connection to country music and instruments that are thought of as country to talk about Black survival. And I really respect them a lot. And Rhiannon Giddens uses a lot of slave narratives in her writing of her songs. So the
Well,
connection.
I wish we could talk longer because this is a really fascinating conversation. But well, fortunately or unfortunately, I guess the segment has ended. But before we go, if you could just remind us where we can reach out to you, how we can find you.
Oh yeah, please. Thank you, Rhonda. Well, you can reach me. I teach at DePaul University, so I am emailable. If you look at the English department at DePaul, my contact information is there. I'm also on, well, I kind of quit Twitter recently, so I'm not on Twitter, but I'm on Instagram and Facebook. So if you put my name in, there aren't very many Francesca Royster or any other ones as far as I know. Let me know if you want to talk more, anyone out there.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, thank you. And before you go, we are giving away a copy of the book that we received. And the answer to the question that I asked about the person whose first name was Valerie and her last name was a month, and the answer was June. And somebody answered it before you said Valerie June. I saw it on the
Tony Bonita answered it.
Tony Bonita answered it. So Tony Bonita, you get your copy of Black Country Music. So
yay.
He's a regular viewer. So thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV. And congratulations on your book.
Thanks so much. Thanks to both of you.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And I should leave now, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, now we Tony Bonita won this one, and so I saw someone give the answer to the other one as well.
Mary Evans, she said New Orleans.
It was the right answer, New Orleans. So Mary Evans, you win Thread Collectors, and the books will be in the mail this week. So I'm writing down so I won't forget who won. So our next guest, those of you on watch probably are aware that we had the first annual Jerry Pinkney Children's Book Awards this year, and we had 5 winners, and they were in different categories. So we're going to have each of the winners on the show. We had one last week, Jatrine Sanders, and this week we have Dorena Williamson. And Dorena won in the religious faith category for her book, The Celebration Place. So, Dorena, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here with both of you.
We're honored to have you here. Thank you so much.
So, do you have a copy of your book handy? I
do.
So you can show the audience.
I like your shelving, by the way, especially the round one.
Oh, thank you. I also have the award, not to toot my own horn, but
okay, no,
it's behind the microphone.
No, toot it. Show the audience, because I would like the audience to see the award that people receive. That it has their name on it, and it
quite an honor.
The category that they won in, and the year. So
yes. It's beautiful. I'm repping all together. I've got the t-shirt on.
You got the t-shirt on.
The t-shirt, the hat.
I see you.
Someone told me.
So
I remember hearing early in my author career that no one should be more excited than you are about your work. And
exactly.
I thought, well, okay.
Well,
exactly.
That's true. And you have the sticker on there as well.
I do. I was so excited to add that sticker on. I mean, each of these things mean the world, to me as a newer author. I'm not young, but just newer in the field. And I am so humbled and grateful for the acknowledgement. So yes, it was quite a joy to put that sticker on there and to have my publisher have some as well, so they can have them on for displays when they have the book out in the world.
Well, that's awesome. What made you decide that you wanted to be a children's author?
Well, I like to say, Rhonda, that it's a calling that found me.
Oh, beautiful.
And I I have wished that my story were like other authors I've spoken with who went to school for journalism or English or creative writing and diligently pursued it from their collegiate days and have walked in it. But my degree is in psychology and counseling, and I have used that in many different ways. And I actually find it fleshed out in my children's books as well. Now, I think cultivating empathy and the shared human values that are really dear to me. But this calling found me years ago as a first lady. I'm first lady of a multiracial church here in the South. And I've raised 4 Black children. So, that says a lot about my story and really what has birthed this longing to put in the world the type of books that I wish I had had from my children growing up.
Yes.
Books that reinforced our faith values and our shared humanity, but also books that gave my kids the representation that I didn't see when I was growing up, in the 70s. And so by the grace of God, I am getting to put that out in the world. And it has been a hard road, but it has been an absolute joy because children are honest and they deserve to have good seeds planted. And so that's really what my desire is.
Beautiful.
Great. Well, as I had mentioned last week when Katrine Sanders was on, that I was on the committee when we were judging the books. And one thing that stood out about your book was it's the simplicity of the message that any child could understand. And it was just an upbeat message about going to church, but you called it the celebration place. And you had all kinds of people, so you made it inclusive. But and I guess that comes from, you said you were first lady at a church is multiracial. So was this book a project for people at your church in particular, or did you intend for it to be universal?
Oh, I love that question being asked. I would say, first of all, that this was definitely a project of love that reflects the church that my husband and I had the joy of planting 27 years ago, and that we still do life with. I wanted to cast a vision that was, as educator Rudine Sims Bishop has articulated so beautifully, giving those literary windows and mirrors. And so for my church, this was a mirror that reflects back to us our beauty, that says we may come from different places, but when we come together in God's house, we are celebrating him and we are celebrating the humanity in one another, and we are learning from one another. My personal religious heritage was the Black church. It was a Baptist church during the school year that my dad pastored, but then it was my grandparents' Methodist church. And then when my husband and I moved to Tennessee, we got immersed for a season in a Presbyterian church. And so in my own journey, I've seen different denominations, different types of music, different types of preaching, people who look different in the congregation, who have different values and convictions about their Christian faith. But even for people who don't share my faith or have no faith, I hoped that this book would also be a literary window so that they could look into and get a sneak peek. And as you alluded, to see, one of my favorite spreads is this one of Indigenous dance. And, we have experienced that in our church, having, First Nations families to don their full regalia and to have their music being played that people might hear at a powwow, but they do it in an interpretive way that's worshipful. And as they address God as creator. And then, I had another spread that really inspired a lot of people because this is a rapper. And my husband was a Christian rapper. And so, for some of the old folks who, might be like, okay, now what is this? But yes, in church, all the gifts get to be celebrated. And so, It was both a mirror of our beauty, but also an opportunity for people to look in the window and see whatever their church expression or not, that church can be a celebration place.
Do you think that you started off with the goal of being a faith-based children's writer, or did you want to just maybe, like you said, you wanted to introduce humanity into your stories? Did it start off that way and then you kind of went into being more of a faith-based writer, or was this something that you wanted to do from the start?
I feel like from the very start, I knew that, my faith is precious to me. And yet I also recognize that there are shared human values that translate across faith, across culture, across race, across all the differences of our humanity. And I feel like um, now 7 books in, I really see whether I'm invited to speak at a school and they say, well, we're not a religious school. And so, what kind of message can you share to our children that's not specifically about the Bible or about your faith? I'm like, oh, there's a lot I can share. It doesn't
Right.
all have to be sourced from what is dear to me. But I do think we live in a world where it is harder for people to be respectful across differences. And so I hope that my books help with that. I'm not ashamed of where they're sourced from. I think everyone has a source and has inspiration and convictions that drive what they're putting out into the world. And I believe that children can be raised in a way that they can be curious about those things. We cultivate those values at home. And I know we have a generation of parents who need some seeds of values inserted in for them. And then we have parents who are saying, I wasn't handed good values. I talk to white parents who say, I'm acknowledging the things that were handed to me were not good. And I don't want to hand that to my white children, or maybe they're in a mixed race marriage or they've adopted children of color and they're realizing there's a better way, but I wasn't seeped in it. And I need something to help me introduce things to my children. And so whether it's giving reflection for kids that look like us, saying you're beautiful and you matter, or it's giving those values to families who don't look like us, but who want to join in humanity and share that. I try to do it in a way that, again, is true and is transparent and is real to who I am, but also doesn't say, well, if you don't share my faith or you don't believe things the same way I do, that this doesn't apply to you. Because again, I think that there's a generation of parents and leaders and librarians and teachers who are saying, kids want to learn and we can expose them to good material and good literature in a way that gives them some good seeds and helps to encourage and foster empathy and kindness and learning about important subjects like Juneteenth and learning that their Black
Yes.
hair is beautiful and all the kind of things that I'm writing about.
Sometimes when we're writing from a faith, position of faith, and we want our books to touch people, but we don't want them to say this isn't for me because they see an obvious religious underpinning. Sometimes we can do it, I don't want to say sneakily, but you can do it in such a way where, and
I
I'll
like
give
to
you an
say
example.
sneakily. I know exactly where you're going. I When I first started writing, there were some Christians who thought that, oh, that's a little too heavy. I can't be reading that. But if you read the story, I wrote the story in such a way to where maybe a person is not going to pick up Christian fiction. They're going to pick up an urban fiction novel or what have you, and they'll still be able to get that same message. If we only write in one way, we're going to wind up not reaching the people we're trying to reach.
That's true.
Yes.
And the book that my daughter and I wrote for teen girls, the title of it is You Are Wonderfully Made. Well, people who are, believers know that's scriptural, but it works in a secular setting too, because there are 12 principles that teen girls can use to succeed. And so, youth groups have used it, not just church groups, athletic groups, non-religious groups. But when I was at the Zeta convention, with Rhonda, and I had my book there. One of the gentlemen, he bought the book and he said, "This is scripture. I know you're trying to teach it to him without telling him." Straight out. He picked up on it. But that was the message we wanted to send to teen girls, especially Black teen girls. It's for all teen girls, but our girls don't get the reinforcement. They don't get that the general population or white girls get. So they need to know they're wonderfully made, and
Absolutely.
and take that to heart and believe it for real. You know.
Yes. Yes.
So, but sometimes you have to reach people where they are, and they'll get the message. And what I liked also about your book were the illustrations were really, really beautiful.
Eye-catching, yes.
And you know what, the way that when we did our judging, just for the audience, we had all the books were listed, and each judge gave a number from 1 to 5, and so we added up the numbers, and that's who won. So your book got 5s across the board when it was being judged. And that was because it was just an incredible presentation. It was like, this is what we need more of.
Yes.
In our churches and just among our children. We need more books like this.
Thank you. That warms my heart so much for many reasons, but one, I think, because, you know, we never know when we write, and the timetable, you know, for those who are joining us who are writers or who are aspiring to write, you know, you envision your book is going to be released and it's going to touch people or inspire people and all the things. But what I could not predict is that when I wrote this book and then waited for the right publishing fit and got a, you know, denial from one place that I thought might be a good fit, and then it just sat on the shelf. And then guess what happened? A worldwide pandemic. And what happened to people who go to church? They couldn't go to church. They were at home. They were doing virtual church, or they were trying to figure out if church was even still important for them. And so how could I have imagined that the perfect timing for this book would be during the pandemic, that I would be sought out by IV Press, who was developing their new kids line and looking for material. And because, you know people who know people, and I had no way of knowing that they were considering starting a children's line. For those who may not be familiar, IV InterVarsity Press is a well-known, over 70 years old Christian publisher who's been consistently publishing books by Black authors, Asian authors, authors of color, and also books that speak to justice and issues that matter to us. And so when I heard through the not so much through the grapevine, but when they did those very careful reach outs and said, we're considering a kids line, do you have something to submit? And I knew that this was the book that I wanted to submit to them, but didn't know if it was the right fit, they would say yes. And so to look now years later and to think that God would let me release this book with them, but now that we are not quite post-pandemic, but certainly post the hard part of everything being shut down everywhere.
Right.
Where I think a book about church being a celebration place is maybe even more relevant now, because we have kids who didn't get to go to church for a long season. And now some of those families may be trying to decide, do I want to go back to church? And certainly
it's a big decision right now.
It's really big. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of really shameful and harmful things that have been perpetuated also. And I can just be real about that as a Christian, that have been perpetuated by the church. And so a lot of people's trust is at an all-time low. And so I think, to hear you, say, Gwen, what you did about the judging, it really warms my heart. And it's such a confirmation of just God's timing. And maybe I hope even an encouragement for some who may be listening in and maybe wondering about their timing for writing or book projects and all of that. So much of that's out of our control. I definitely do believe that there is someone divine who controls all those things, but it's super encouraging to hear you say that and to think of the timing for this book to be out in the world.
Well, also the timing in terms of things were coming back to know, people were starting to come back to church. So the book was saying, let's come back. It's a celebration place. So all of that went into the judging, and everybody was very excited about the book. And this was our first time doing the award. This was our last year, was our first year. So we decided to do the award because we wanted more recognition in the children's genre for Black authors. Because yes, there are a lot of awards done universally, but it's a lot of Black authors that just get left out of that whole process. It's just, they get buried and they don't get the recognition and they don't get elevated. And so whenever you're writing a book and something positive like this happens, awards or nominations, it gives you a lift and it gives you some extra publicity that you wouldn't automatically have. It gives you some inspiration to keep writing.
Yes.
You know, sometimes we're writing in the wilderness, especially if we're self-published or with small presses. We'll have several books and this will wonder when are we going to get, when is somebody going to notice? So
you feel like you're working in a bubble sometimes. So it feels good when people recognize what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Right. It does.
Absolutely.
It does. And we've all been there. So
yes.
Writing books is a solitary exercise.
Yes.
And so but getting it out there is not. The marketing part is not. So what's next for you as far as do you have another book that or do you have any of your other books? You said that was book number 7. Is that what you said?
That's book number 7.
Okay, so
I'll just briefly, this is another book that came out last year. This is the story of Juneteenth. So it's a board book for
that's cute.
The youngest readers.
And
it is a 250 word introduction, because I believe that babies and pre-readers need to begin to get some seeds planted about Juneteenth. And as it is now a federal holiday, and so that's giving Juneteenth more recognition than it rightfully deserves. This is just a great way to introduce the subject. It was a hard writing project because how do you condense the history of Juneteenth to 250 words? and this publisher was very committed to historical accuracy, as they should have been. But it was important. I think one of the things that was really important for me, if I can just show, because this is relevant to, this January 1st was 160 years since the Emancipation Proclamation.
Yes.
And so when they said, map out this story, I was like, I want a spread that shows, watch night, that shows the history of waiting and watching for the new year, because a lot of people who are not familiar with the Black church tradition may not know why watch night services even became such a precious thing for us. And so just thinking of the rejoicing as the clock struck midnight, or as it became January 1st and they were declared free, and even the journey after that. I mean, you can't fit it all in 250 words, but
yours is the first board book I've seen on Juneteenth.
I don't think that there's a lot of board books.
Right. So
and there's some wonderful books. So I'm grateful to have that as an offering added in. And then this little shelf over here is tricky. So if it falls down, I want anybody to go crazy.
Don't knock it over for our sake.
It's a little fragile, but but this one is also a sweet jewel. Crown with Glory was released last year as well. Last year was a busy year. 3 books released. So Juneteenth, this one. And then this one just released in December. Crown of Glory is an ode to Rocking Your God-Given Beauty, sweet little girl who's got her beautiful big hair. And she knows that she's crowned with glory, and she goes through life learning about her own personal confidence and style. So she goes to the beauty shop and she learns to raise her voice as a leader. And so it's just an ode to Black girl joy and Black girl hair. And it's had a lot of beautiful receptivity with Black women who really were my heart, thinking of my 3 daughters and my 3 sisters, and just how we need to be celebrated for the beauty that we are crowned with and all of our fullness. So
Well, Tony Bonita said that she likes that book. She said that was a good one by you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Tony. And then I'll also highlight this one. Brown Baby Jesus released September. And so it just had its first holiday campaign. And this, I like to tell people who couldn't see it that, yes, he's actually brown. It actually features a brown Jesus. But it really goes through Jesus's family tree, and it's unique for a Christmas book in that it's set in Egypt. So when the Holy Family had to flee Bethlehem and live as refugees in Egypt, it highlights that season of Jesus's life as a toddler. And just really shows the beauty of even the women of color that were part of Jesus's family tree. Again, for those who may be familiar with the biblical narrative, but for those who may not, but who at least are familiar with Jesus because of Christmas. And so, yeah, then my other books, Colorful, Thoughtful, and Graceful as well. Just books that give representation, disability, homelessness, celebrating the beauty of our racial differences. These are all core values of mine and themes that I have put into book form. 7 kids books, and then the 8th book will release next May.
Look at you. Are you going to be able to keep up this pace?
You didn't have a background. Yes, you did.
Yeah.
You know what?
You are keeping up a really strong pace.
It's been glorious, and I know our time is winding down, but I am really, really grateful that God would give me again this I call it my midlife adventure. I just had a birthday, so 52 years around the planet, and just getting to get my stride, I feel, and hopefully encourage those in all seasons of life, whether they're young adults like my kids finishing college and going into their careers, trying to figure out becoming. And I know it's hard. It's hard when you're 45 and you have this new adventure of writing and you're like, will people listen to me? I'm not famous. I don't have a big following. I just have some stories that I want to share. And I want a generation of kids to have more representation than my kids had. And by the grace of God, I'm getting to put those books out in the world. And again, so honored by things like this. So thank you for the support and what that means to me. And I'm here to cheer on other authors, especially our Black authors, as they share their worthy stories with the world.
That is beautiful. Well, we did put your website in the chat, but can you also let us know how we can reach out to you?
Yes. Well, I am most active on Instagram, and I love telling people that I absolutely love pictures of kids with my books. So unashamedly, if you have children in your life, whether they're your nieces, nephews, grandkids, kids at church or daycare, I love to reshare pictures of kids with my books. So Instagram at Dorena Williamson, and then my website, as you put in the chat, I do try to respond to folks if they reach out. Love to encourage people who are writers. So definitely reach out, and I would definitely appreciate support, because the market needs to see that Black authors can sell books. So I'm not ashamed to say that. Please purchase books by Black authors. Share them, please write reviews so that the market sees, we're not just wanting to put our face out there, but our words matter. Yes. And by supporting them, we demonstrate to the market. And most importantly, though, really plant these seeds in the hearts of our little people, because they deserve
Amen.
that.
Amen. Amen. Well,
Well,
thank
Mary,
you.
I did want to say Mary Evans was on the committee as well.
Oh, yes.
And she said, as a judge, this book was beautifully written and masterfully illustrated. Oh yeah, Mary was one of the judges as well.
Thank you, Mary. That blesses my heart. I will share these sentiments with the illustrator as well, because I know that'll be an encouragement for her.
Now, did your books get illustrated all by the same person, or is it different people?
Different illustrators. Each publisher has a different sort of plan with that. And I've
Okay.
just learned again that they partner with different illustrating agencies. And I have had a hand in each book. I have been able to give input with the illustrators and each spread along the process. And it's like Christmas when you get an email from your editor saying, here's another spread. And it's like, so anyway, I feel like the childlike wonder gets cultivated in me as I write more books. So it's really a joy.
Well,
Okay,
keep
well,
doing what you're doing.
congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Beautiful stories, beautiful illustrations. Yes, and beautiful messages. So keep doing what you're doing.
I will. And thank you so much again for inviting me. I'm so honored to share this space with you all and keep doing the good work you're doing. We appreciate it so much.
Okay,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Okay, take care.
Take care.
Okay, good
Bye-bye.
night.
Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you.
Okay, so we got our winners for the book, so I got that taken care of. And
Mhm.
so our final guest is Djuanna Brockington, and Djuanna is one of the people who are spearheading the Black Ink Charleston Festival. And Djuanna was on the show last year around this time because the festival is imminent. It's not this weekend, but next weekend in Charleston. So we want to welcome back Djuanna Brockington to Black Authors Matter TV.
Hi, y'all. How's it going?
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome
Hey,
back.
thank you. Thank you so much.
So tell us about first, which year is this of the festival?
Ooh. So this is year 7 of the Black Ink
Okay.
Book Festival. Yeah.
Okay, all
Had
right.
it for a minute.
And you all kicked the year off because you all are the first festival of the year in the Black Book Festival space. You know, there's different ones throughout the year. Ours is in October. One of the last ones is in October. But yours is the first. And was that intentional to kick the year off? Did you all want to be before Black History Month? Why did you do it in January? You know,
So-
sometimes it's just like it's random when you pick dates. Sometimes.
So actually, COVID is the reason we are in January. We were typically in the fall, and then 2020 hit.
Okay.
And we thought in September that we'd be able to do our usual event, and we couldn't. And so we kept pushing it back and pushing it back. And finally, we decided that we would host our first virtual event. So we skipped a whole year, 2020, and ended up having our first virtual event January 2021. It worked so well, we decided that that would be the weekend. Like, we'll just leave it there and go with that. And it's been a good thing for us.
Okay. All right. Yeah, well, a lot of us were virtual. We were virtual for 2 years with the National Black Book Festival. So 2020 and 2021 in October. But we kept it in October once.
It took us a little longer to figure it out, like how we were going to do it.
Yeah, it's you know, and I tell people who I get emails or calls or people who I see at our event that say, I want to do a book event in my area. You know, do you have any tips? And, you know, I could write a book about doing a book event, but what I tell them is it costs a fortune. So if you need money, you need real money. You need to figure out how you're going to finance it. That's the main thing. You know, an idea is great, but without the money, and what happens a lot of times, people don't really figure the money thing out. Then they do an event, they lose their shirt, like they really like go under with it, and then they don't do it again. So you don't want to do that. And I wish I had somebody tell me it was going to cost a fortune. I didn't have that, so we had to learn by doing. And we had other things happen. You know, we had an ongoing business and books, so it wasn't the only thing we were doing. You know, it wasn't like this was it. But It costs a fortune. I just want to let people know that.
Yeah.
And you can surmise in your mind what you think a fortune is. And whatever you think it is, double it.
And don't think that just because you're virtual, that won't cost you either.
Right. Virtual
Because it
still
does.
costs.
Still
Virtual
costs.
still costs.
Yeah.
So anyway, tell us about the Black Ink Charleston Festival. What do you all have going on this year?
Oh my God. We are so excited. So this year is, so last year was our first year with a theme, and we went all in with romance. And this year we are doing sci-fi fantasy, and our theme is Black to the Future. And so we've been having conversations around what Afrofuturism is, big word, and how we show up in sci-fi and fantasy fiction.
Nice, nice.
And so we had a great conversation, and her name just went out of my head.
Is it your keynote person?
So our keynote is Namina Forna, and she's written young adult sci-fi fantasy. But we had a conversation, and I am so sorry, y'all. I'm blanking after the holidays and getting back to work.
It
to your
happens. It
brain.
happens.
It'll come back. It may be after the show's over.
Yeah.
But
But it's on our YouTube and our Facebook channel, and you guys can go and watch it. And we had a great conversation about what Afrofuturism is. And she coined or used the term the Black Fantastic. And so this year we are just really on the heels of Black Panther 1 and 2. We were anticipating the release. And so as we were planning last year, we thought this would be the year for sci-fi, because Black Panther 2 would be coming out in the fall. And so it's just really us reimagining our place and our space in these fantasy worlds with magic and, time travel and, space travel and all the things. So we're really excited to talk about that, have those conversations, and hear other people's thoughts around what it looks like for them when we show up in that space.
This is a fairly new, and I may be out of the loop or whatever. There may be some other things in the past. I know Octavia Butler did sci-fi, and I loved her book. I read her book. I read what was it? Something, the Wild Seed. Of course, I read Kindred, and I need to go back and reread it because I've seen the Hulu. I thought that they did a really good job, but I just want to go back and read the book so I can see, because it's been like 15 years. I can't remember the whole storyline. I just remember she went back and forth in time. I don't remember the details. I want to go back and see how closely or not it adheres to the storyline. But Octavia Butler is the only person that's coming to my mind that did real sci-fi. Now, there may be other people. There are people who do more paranormal, and I don't know if you all are including that in. We are. That so part, like a sub-genre within that overall. So Tanana Reeve Do and her husband Stephen Barnes will be doing a workshop for us. It is virtual, so you guys will be able to check it out.
Yeah, they've been doing workshops together for a while.
Yeah, and we had them as featured authors. It was the same. Was it the same year we had Eric Jerome Dickey? I think it was 2018. Or no, maybe it was the same year we had Walter Mosley. I think we had Walter Mosley and then Tanana Reeve Do and Stephen Barnes at the same. We had the two of them together. That was really special, because they don't appear together that much in public, in book events. So, and we've had Stephen Barnes on the show, and I'm working on getting Tanana Reeve on the show. We are super geeked to just be able to have a conversation with them. And they're really kind of kicking off the event for us on Thursday. Okay.
And like I said, our keynote is Namina Forna. She writes young adult fiction. And The Gilded Ones and I believe The Merciless Ones is the sequel. And just it's, you know, it's these young, she's from Sierra Leone. And so it's a West African influence. And so
Yes.
for me, what got me into or back into the sci-fi fantasy genre was Nnedi Okorafor. I always butcher her last name. My apologies, because I love her and I love her writing. And she wrote Akata Witch. So she also wrote some a young adult series, Akata Witch, Akata Warrior. I think it's like Akata, I can't remember what the last one was. I've read them all. She also wrote this amazing book called Who Fears Death? And man, I tell you, like, it just like registered with me. It was just mythical, magical, amazing.
Are they meant for adults or young adults?
So Who Fears Death is for adults.
Okay.
And Akata Witch, the Akata Witch series is for young adults.
Gotcha. Because they sound like they're written for young adults, but an older adult would enjoy them. We saw that a lot with the Harry Potter series. There were adults reading that, and it wasn't really meant for adults. But good writing is good writing sometimes.
Exactly. And I think one of our keynote speakers, Kwame Imbalia, who wrote Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. So he was supposed to be our 2020 keynote and ended up being our first virtual keynote in January 2021. And I was so amazed because he was one of the first to really do sci-fi fantasy from a young middle grade Black male's perspective.
Yes.
And I remember about 50 pages in the book, I just put the book down and I called my brother and I was like, you need to get this book for, I have my nephew's 10 now, and this was a couple of years ago. I was like, you need to get this book for Liam. You guys are going to enjoy it. And so I think a lot of the sci-fi fantasy, especially for the African-American readers, a lot of it's right now YA and middle grade. And I think adults are now like, oh, wait, hold up. We got some magic too. And so I'm super excited about it.
Now, who was the author of Who Fears Death? You said
Nnedi Okorafor. Lord, please forgive me.
Okay, so just spell the first name. I should be able to find it.
Nnedi.
Okay, Nnedi. Okay, I'm gonna look that up. That sounds like it's something. But it seems like it's just and Rhonda, what you said is it seems like that maybe that's the case because it seems like it's new, but they're gearing it more toward young adult readers and middle grade readers. But I'm glad they're finally depicting us in the future because for the longest, anything about the future didn't have Black people, and it's like, okay, what are y'all trying to say?
Yeah.
What are you?
Right.
What message are you all trying to send? That we don't exist in the future? That we don't deserve to exist in the future? What are you saying? And so, other than Uhuru on Star Trek, for a long time we didn't see anybody.
Don't forget about LeVar Burton, the blind guy that was flying.
Yes. Geordi LaForge.
But see,
Yes.
I didn't watch Star Trek, so I did forget. That's why I forgot. I'm not a Trekkie, but my husband's a Trekkie, but he's an original Trekkie. So but you're right. I'm sorry. But I've never have I ever watched one episode of Star Trek?
I watched Star Trek because my parents watched Star Trek. I was more into Star Wars.
Didn't. My dad liked Westerns and he liked shows like the FBI, like police shows or, that. So he never watched stuff.
So So
perspective.
what other types of activities are going to be taking place at the festival?
So we're going to have our online workshops. We found that is a recipe that has worked for us. And so this year, for the first year, we're hybrid. So
I was
Friday,
just going to ask, so we can be, I can be here in DC and
yeah,
still be a part of this festival.
yes. So Thursday and Friday are hybrid, I'm sorry, are online. And then Saturday is in person, but we will
Mhm.
be streaming the keynote.
Wonderful.
So you'll be able to have access to that as well. Everything will be on our Facebook page as well as posted on our YouTube later on. So you'll have, if you can't make it, or you have to run out of the house and do stuff because
Because life.
life happens, you'll be able to circle back and catch it later. So we're super excited about that.
Now we had somebody had asked us about doing a hybrid. My concern was because we did the two total virtuals, 2021 and 2022. I was concerned about cannibalizing my in-person crowd. If people knew they could watch it, would they still come? So do you have any concerns about that? Or did you all just decide you were going to go that way? Because the only thing we live streamed was stuff we didn't tell people we were going to live stream. So they didn't know. So they had to show up because they didn't know what was going to be live streamed. So, but I want to just hear about someone else's thinking on that.
So we had a lot of we have like a core of writers that local writers that were like, hey, when are you guys going to be back in person? And Charleston is such a social, the South is, we just want to be in everybody's space, which is not good during a pandemic, but we just thought that this would be a great opportunity to continue the workshops, so that, because honestly, our festival prior to the pandemic was a one-day event, and it was just the vendors.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was the
Okay.
vendors and then the keynote, and then everybody went home. And so when we moved to virtual, we had to figure out, we wanted to make it enticing and make people want to come and engage and celebrate and just learn something. And so that's how we landed on the 3 days for the festival. And so we didn't want to, because we've had viewers from DC, England, California, we still want folks to be able to
Right.
participate with us, because our festival is free. And we're not good. We're going to try to continue to do that. And we just didn't want to lose anybody along the way. So for folks who want to be in person, they can come do that and have a fun, family-friendly day, buy some books, meet some writers, have some great conversations, and then listen to an amazing keynote. So I'll let you know how it goes.
Well, you all actually expanded your event
Yes.
with the
Well,
virtual.
I'm doing virtual now. 2 years ago when I did my event totally virtual, it was free, but I also had a VIP and a prize option. So if they could purchase a ticket, so that which would qualify them for prizes. And then I also opened it up to go Facebook Live. So there were people who were able to attend for free, and then the people who were able to qualify to get prizes. And that way I was able to make some money from the event.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was able to open it up, and I wound up having about 1,300 people join us for the event. And some of them stayed on the entire 6 hours. I was shocked.
Ooh.
So I plan on doing it again. Now this year I'm doing my event. I'm doing a ticketed event in person, but I'm still offering the virtual option for people who maybe can't attend. And I'm not really worried that people won't come if they know there's a virtual option, because there are certain things you're going to get face to face, and there are certain things that you can get watching it virtual. If you're face to face, you're going to eat, you're going to be able to to interact with the authors and the guest speaker. There are certain things that you're just not going to be able to do virtually.
Yeah.
But then there are some people who can't make it. I want to be able to get as many people as possible into the event.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the, but, you know, we had a lot of people watching those live streams that we did, the ones when you
Mhm.
did the interviews. We had a lot of views on there. And they're
Yep.
still on Facebook, and they're still getting views. So,
Awesome.
you know, even with the, but you know, we live in a COVID changed things. So now we live in a virtual hybrid, in person, it's optional, whatever, you know, you can do all kinds of things. And so we're going to be in person again this year, and we're going to probably do something similar to what we did last year, is do, you know, some snippets virtually. We might do one of our workshops. Our workshops are amazing. We had some really good ones. And this year we have one on finding an agent. So, you know, what is an agent looking for? And a lot of people are wanting to know about that. So we'll see. You know, we're still working out details, but I'm excited about this year, and excited for you all that you are kicking off your year, right? It's starting off like it's supposed to, with a bang.
It
And
is.
Black Ink Charleston is leading the way, and then there's just like different ones throughout the year. And you know, even though this show is sponsored by the book festival, we have people on that are doing events. So because we want to help promote events that are happening all over the United States, you know, not just our event. So
and we appreciate that. And honestly, I think one of the things that we've been fortunate enough to do as we've grown is last year, for the first time, we had we took pitches online. Ooh, I did not. My hats off to Savannah and Rhonda, my planning committee members who held it down, and we will be doing online pitches as well, Thursday and Friday, and then some pitches in person on Saturday as well. And we also, Savannah's probably going to strangle me, but we're having conversations with Harlequin about doing a separate pitch event in the spring. And so that we're excited about that as well. And so we've just had opportunities. The pandemic shifted, we had to shift, everybody did, but it really also kind of opened some doors for how we could do the festival, and got us to think bigger and dream bigger. And now the festival is like, last year we had over 400 attendees, which is huge for us because we're looking at 150 to 200 folks in person, and to have 400 online was amazing. So we're excited about what the possibilities could look like, what the numbers could look like for this year.
Absolutely. It sounds like it's going to be incredible. And I'm glad to know that it's going to be virtual as well, because now I can participate.
Yes, go on blackinkcharleston.org
It
and
is
register.
already in the chat. It's
Yeah.
already in the chat.
Rhonda is on it with the chat.
Yes, go register, check us out.
Yes.
So I like that you all are doing themes, that you all decided to do the themes, and that you all are tapping into like what's the trending thing now, you know, and that's good.
We're ready for 2024 too.
Yes.
So what's that? 2024. Now, you know,
She said she's ready for 2024,
like, yeah,
and 2023 is only 3
it
days
just
old.
getting started. But
That's right.
2024, the number just sounds like something's gonna happen in 2024.
Yeah, because she
One of
sounded
those
very
numbers,
ominous.
you know.
So I will share. So last year with our romance, a lot of the writers were asked the question how they got started writing, and so many of them said that they, you know, somebody did them wrong or treated them bad, and they started writing so they could kill somebody off.
Oh,
without.
you know what? I wrote a book like that once because I was mad at somebody.
See?
Sometimes that drives the story.
So after we had already decided on what was going to happen for 2023, but we were like, murder and mayhem, man. Like, so it's just been fun how how we come up with the themes, and we just pay attention to what folks are saying, what they're talking about, the
Yes.
energy that they have. And there are a lot of police procedurals on TV right now. I got my fireplace, I think it's on a commercial.
Your fireplace is on the commercial.
So, we all have these streaming things,
Yes.
right? And so Samsung will stream the fireplace, but they do this random thing where they'll interject a commercial. And so I can be working and then I'll just see people moving in the background. I'm like, where's the fire, man? So sorry, I had to segue because there's a commercial instead of my fireplace.
So next year you all are doing a murder and mayhem.
Murder and mayhem, yeah.
So that would be for mysteries, thrillers, anything in that
absolutely.
genre,
Yeah.
that space.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So far everything is fiction. So you're gonna probably stay in that
for a while.
Because there's so many options in fiction. There's so many things that you can do with fiction.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have a local interview today, as a matter of fact, and the interviewer asked me about maybe having a year that's dedicated to the Gullah Geechee culture.
I think that's an awesome idea.
Right?
Especially since you're in Charleston.
Yes.
Right. And so, and again, this is how we get our ideas, like just having, conversations with folks, really hearing what people want, what they want to talk about, what they want to hear more about. And so that makes it easy, but also exciting to build something around that.
That's great. That's great. Well, for people who want to attend the Black Ink Charleston Festival, be it virtual or in person, it's January 12th through the 14th. And how do they attend in person? Where do they go? And then how do they attend virtually?
So if you're in Charleston, we will be at the Trident Technical College campus in North Charleston at their convention center. And it's the front of the building. You won't get lost. It's a huge space, so there'll be plenty of space to spread out, see people, talk to people, and also hear the keynote. And if you're not able to attend in person, you can register online. Registration will stay up probably until the beginning of the event, kickoff next week. And you'll get, we're using a platform called Hopin. You'll come in.
Hopin.
You'll get to attend the virtual workshops, ask questions, engage, the whole nine, and never leave your house. So check this out.
Hey, I'm gonna have to check into Hopin. I never heard of it.
Yeah, Hopin is a good platform, and there's another platform called Glue Up that's a good platform. I used that for my virtual event a couple years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm always learning new stuff on this show.
So, well, what is your personal website? We have Black Ink Charleston in the chat, but what's your website so we can reach out to you?
So you guys can reach me at my email, Djuanna, DJUANNAB @gmail.com. My website is southerngirlmedia.com, but I'm going to be revamping some stuff right now. It has all of my writing on it, but my ebooks and where you can find them. But I'm going to be switching some things up because I've been doing some podcasting as well, and so I want to make sure that I encompass everything.
I'm taking January to revamp some of my stuff too, so I understand.
Yeah, I'm gonna be getting a new cell phone. I don't know if it'll be this month. Definitely by next month. I didn't have any choice. That's okay. But I wouldn't tell you what number I have. That's how old it is. Anyway, but I'm just getting to where the battery just, it's not cooperating. I'm being forced into the next level. So
Right.
anyway, Djuanna, congratulations and much success with your event coming up. I know it'll be fantastic.
Thank you guys. And we appreciate your support so much. Hope to see you next weekend.
Okay.
Well, you have a great weekend. Happy, I was about to say Happy Mother's Day. Oh my goodness. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you. It's okay. We still got some lag.
Okay. Have a great evening.
All righty, y'all. Good
All
night.
right, good night.
Okay, that's it for the first edition of Black Authors Matter TV for 2023. And we are looking forward to big things happening this year for the show and for all the authors that are affiliated with the show and watch the show and everything. We just know that this year is going to be great. So we're out for tonight. I'm Gwen Richardson signing off.
And I'm Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Have a wonderful evening, a happy new year, and a great week.
We'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.